here in Doha. Temperatures are only going to get to about 24 degrees on Saturday. Abu Dhabi at 23, but we could possibly see some showers for the southwestern part of Saudi Arabia as we head into Sunday.
Qatar Airways, world's five-star airline.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies.
We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. The top stories on Al Jazeera. Muammar Gaddafi's forces have launched a powerful attack to try to take back the closest opposition-held city to the Libyan capital. AlJazeera was the focus of intense fighting as pro-Gaddafi forces moved on the town. This footage was uploaded onto a social media website. Tear gas and rubber bullets were used to break up an anti-Gaddafi protest in a district of Tripoli. Several hundred men took to the streets after Friday prayers. And there are reports coming in that rebels have taken control of Libya's key Mediterranean oil port, Ras Lanouf. It followed a battle between pro- and anti-Gaddafi forces. The Libyan government denies the rebel claims. The UN recently announced that global food prices have reached an all-time high. And in Libya, nowhere is this more evident than in the lengthening bread queues. As Al Jazeera's Tim Friend reports, high oil prices and the rising cost of basic foodstuffs pose a real threat to the country's economic future.
Not guns or missiles, but food. And in a protracted conflict in Libya, it could determine the outcome more crucially than any conventional weapon. Here in rebel-held AlJazeera, the baker, Agu Fakri, reveals that the use of food as a weapon by Gaddafi supporters has already begun.
Obviously, there's no stock of flour left. We had a small quantity coming from Tripoli, but it was taken back. We saw it on TV being brought as far as Sirte. We saw that the leader said the flour could come to the east, and then the flour was turned back by those highway bandits of his.
The World Food Programme is calling for urgent and safe access to Libya after a ship carrying vital food aid was unable to dock at the port city of Benghazi on the Mediterranean coast due to security concerns. The WFP has launched an emergency operation costing more than $39 million to provide much-needed food aid for Libyans inside the country and those who fled into neighbouring Tunisia and Egypt.
We were getting reports from those crossing the border into Tunisia just earlier this week about food being used as a potential weapon. We heard that some of Gaddafi's supporters were trying to deny some of the rebels food in certain areas. I mean, if they see any food trucks coming in, they may be able to stop them. And this is the last thing we want to see, of course, because food should be available to everybody.
Libya relies on food imports. A staggering 90% of all food supplies come from abroad. Many foreign workers are employed in farming and food production, but with migrants fleeing in their thousands, food supplies are suffering. But it's not only food. In 2000, more than a quarter of the population did not have access to safe drinking water. Global food prices have already reached new highs this year and could suffer the impact of further oil price spikes amid turmoil in Libya and the Middle East. Skyrocketing food prices were among the triggers for protests in Egypt and Tunisia. And once again, they're playing a central role in revolution. Tim Friend, Al Jazeera.
Now, an attack by Libyan military forces loyal to Gaddafi on a weapons dump near Benghazi has killed 17 people. Meanwhile, thousands gathered following Friday prayers to support those still under government control in Tripoli. Tony Bertley sent us this report from the rebel-controlled eastern city.
Neither the weather nor Gaddafi's threats could stop them massing in the centre of Benghazi for Friday prayers. Tens of thousands gathered in defiance of their hated leader and in support of those still under government control in Tripoli. In the city where the uprising began, the cleric called for Gaddafi to step down, the people to stand up, and those with guns to come forward and fight for the liberation of the capital. These people remain resolute and determined, but that alone is not enough. They need something more. If anything, Gaddafi seems stronger and bolder than he was at the beginning. So the question is, what next? And what if the Libyan leader refuses to go? Will this civil uprising turn into a civil war? Many say that won't happen, but international rhetoric has increased, direct pressure has slowed. Some feel the momentum of the uprising has slowed with it.
Gaddafi is in hiding. He is not representing anybody any longer. He is a coward and he won't challenge the people, and it is only a matter of time.
People here know Gaddafi has weathered international storms and sanctions before, most notably after the downing of Pan Am 103 more than 20 years ago, and there are still real concerns in free Libya.
We need to think of the life of the Libyans first as a priority, so we are asking for the help of the international community under the UN flag.
From the streets, though, there are no doubts. Those in Benghazi seem totally committed to the fight, wherever it may lead.
We are not afraid of anything, except if he drops bombs on us.
Gaddafi has used that aerial threat a number of times in the last few days, and control of the skies is essential to complete liberation.
We know that this guy will commit a massacre in Tripoli today, and if the international community doesn't move, then it will be on their conscience.
Another victim of the rebellion is paraded through the streets of the city. It's almost a daily occurrence. The pain is still being felt here. Ahmed Sati was a 51-year-old civil servant who has just died from a bullet wound sustained during the demonstrations. His children lost a loving father and a man who wanted democracy. Even though Gaddafi is still in power, they don't feel his death was in vain.
My father did not die for nothing. He and the rest died for our beloved country.
With the death toll now said to have surpassed 1,000, the heart of the revolution is suffering, and throughout Libya today there is still uncertainty, there is still anger, and there is still death. Tony Bertley, AlJazeera, Benghazi.
I'll just bring you some breaking news on Libya. The Libyan Deputy Foreign Minister has told reporters from Reuters, that the government has accepted a peace initiative put forward by the Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez. And this is apparently in contradiction to the earlier rejection by Saif al-Islam, the son of Gaddafi, of this suggestion, who Saif al-Islam had said on Thursday he appreciated the offer, but there was no need for help from Venezuela. So interesting that it now seems the Foreign Minister is saying that the Libyan government has accepted this peace plan. So we'll bring you more on that as we get it. First, though, let's get some of the web developments from Imran.
Thanks, Lauren. Well, cyberspace is alive with the sound of revolution as Friday marks a number of protests across the region. Now, we've got reporters across the Middle East bringing you up to date with the latest, but equally important is the voice